Welcome to the Twin Cities Startup Week Benefits of Certification session. My name is Karin Tobler, and I'm part of the supplier diversity team at Target. I'm joined today by my colleague, Mike Alexander. We're super grateful to be here to give you a quick tour of supplier diversity and get a deeper look at certification. We'll also be joined by a couple of special guests shortly. Let's get started. So in this quick tour of supplier diversity, you're probably wondering, what exactly is supplier diversity? And what we see as supplier diversity within Target is truly an enterprise-wide business strategy that ensures the use of diverse-owned companies in order to deliver on Target goals and objectives. And we recognize those companies as those that are headquartered in the United States, 51% or more owned, controlled, and operated by either women, Black, Indigenous, people of color, veterans, LGBTQ, as well as persons with disabilities. And we do so because, quite frankly, our guests want to shop their values. We know that diverse suppliers are uniquely positioned to help Target connect to the guest, drive traffic, newness, and differentiation in our stores. And we do this in a couple of ways to confirm our diverse companies as truly diverse owned, and that's through certification. One, we do certification through national organizations like the National Minority Supplier Development Council, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, as well as the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Disability In, and some of the veteran organizations. In addition, we have our third-party scrub partner, which essentially helps us validate and classify companies that are certified or diverse owned. And then last but not least, for businesses that are working towards certification, we have a self-representation form that provides us that temporary identification in our systems. And so now let's take a quick peek at what our different pillars of focus are. So within supplier diversity, we look at three different areas of focus. One is identification. So we spend a lot of time looking for companies that align to Target strategies and therefore have the opportunity to grow and or test within our stores, headquarters, distribution centers, and other services that we may need. We do so by finding these companies online at key national conferences, as well as through word of mouth, through this incredible organization and industry that is called supplier diversity. We also take a lot of time in the support pillar, which is through coaching and mentoring, connecting our vendors to industry resources like vendor broker groups, or other key partners such as certification organizations to help them in their journey. We also serve as liaisons, so essentially internal ambassadors between vendors and the decision makers, whether it's merchants or procurement partners. And we do this across every single category in the enterprise. So everything that we sell on our shelves and on .com, as well as all of those categories that service any sort of business need that we might have in order to fulfill our goals, to run our stores, headquarters, and distribution centers. And then last but not least in the support column, we do reinforce messages. And this is something that goes in two different ways. One, we can help you as an entrepreneur to make sure that you're top of mind and that any key points that you want to make sure that decision makers know, we take the time to help them understand why it's so critical to know those pieces of information. And then we also provide feedback whenever possible, as well as any sort of messages that those procurement partners and buyers might have for you as the entrepreneur interested in doing business with Target. And then last but not least, we spend the rest of our time in the measurement pillar, which is understanding where our vendors are at, whether it's through our spend tracking, as well as our inclusion goals, and then ultimately creating that pipeline to maintain and track certified diverse suppliers that are ready to do business with us. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk a little bit about certification.
So, what is certification? So certification is the review process. Just think about it. We're actually just affirming that you are who you say you are. You know, it ensures that small businesses are actually owned and operated and controlled by the applicant. Most certifications are usually granted to women and minorities, small businesses, small disadvantages of businesses as well. So this is just really to streamline the process for us. Imagine working with all of these diverse brands and we have to do the financials ourselves, going through the site visits ourselves. We just wouldn't have the capacity or the resources to do that. So there are these organizations that handle that process for us, and it gives them, just really gives us that reassurance that the companies are who they say. Now, once you've been certified, now what? So what are some of the benefits? So there are a ton of benefits, and I'll just walk through a couple of these points here for you. But exposure, there's so much exposure to other corporates like ourselves that's out there looking for brands that are under these diverse identities we've called out. Also, there's partnerships and network with people within the industry, people that you can learn from, other minority-owned businesses and women that you can learn from and actually look at them as clients as well. Access to databases. It gives me at my fingertips to look and find companies that I'm searching for, and I will let you know that these certifying organizations that we partner with, that's step one when looking for brands to fulfill our needs. There's access to education, teaching you how to scale, how to grow your brands, collaborate, build business plans. There's funding opportunities, working with the certified organizations to assist you with funding. It really takes you to the next level, and it adds credibility to your business. And it also is something that we as Target is taking this very serious, and it makes your program eligible for a lot of benefits and programs that we offer. So I won't go into detail here because we'll have two very important guests that will walk you down this road and get a little more granular with you and explain the programs and the benefits. But before we move forward, I want to share with you something that's very special to us and give you a firsthand experience of how our supplier diversity team has worked with one of our diverse women-owned companies. So I'm going to kind of set this up for you, kind of like the Jimmy Kimmel show. So we on the supplier diversity team have been very fortunate to work with a ton of different brands. This year, during Black History Month, we had an opportunity to work with Beatrice Dixon and the Honey Pot Company. And there was a national syndicated commercial that was aired, and I would love to share this with you right now. Please enjoy.
My name is Beatrice Dixon. I'm the founder of the Honey Pot. In the beginning, it wasn't easy to start this company. And there was a lot of times that it almost didn't happen. If Target didn't take the chance on us, we wouldn't be in all the retailers that we're in today. But what's really dope is they helped us with the product line, the packaging. It really changed my life. The reason why it's so important for Honey Pot to do well is so the next Black girl that comes up with a great idea, she could have a better opportunity. That means a lot to me.
Today, we have two very special guests. I would like to introduce Heather Olson with the NCMSDC President and CEO, and Karen Gardner with the WBDC. Heather, can you give us just a quick snippet of who you are and your background?
Sure. So thank you, Target. Great to be here. Nice to see you, Karen. So Heather Olson, President and CEO of North Central Minority Supplier Development Council, or NCMSDC. We are an affiliate of the National Minority Supplier Development Council. We cover Iowa, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wisconsin. And we do the MBE, or Minority Business Enterprise Certification, which I know we'll dive deeper into today. So great to be here. Great to be part of this discussion.
And Karen.
Sure, Karen Goldner. I'm the Managing Director of Established Business Services with the Women's Business Development Center. We're based in Chicago. We have offices in the Twin Cities as well as Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Kansas City. We're the largest of the regional partner organizations for the WBENC, Women Business Enterprise National Council Network. We have 2,100 actually WBEs certified in the 9 states that we serve, which include what Heather said, and in addition, Missouri and Illinois and Kansas, and I don't remember if you said Nebraska or not, but we have that one too.
No, didn't say Nebraska.
So it just helped me understand, what do you enjoy most about working with these entrepreneurs? And I'll start with you, Karen.
Well, it is the working with the entrepreneurs that I enjoy the most. Just helping people achieve their goals and their dreams. There are so many amazing business owners out there, and nobody works harder than entrepreneurs, and it's so exciting to be able to help them achieve their goals, whether that's selling to Target or whatever those goals and dreams are. And it's really it's fun to work with our corporate partners and supplier diversity professionals like you all as well, because you all have that same passion, and it's just really fun to be able to help folks meet their goals.
Nice. And Heather?
The passion, the commitment, the innovation, the nimbleness, the tirelessness. What amazes me about our entrepreneurs that we work for is I don't think they sleep, and they have to learn and do everything soup to nuts, and they just dive in, and they're great partners, and it's an exciting space, and I get to vicariously live off of their bravery, because I think being an entrepreneur is an exciting and very brave space. So similar to Karen, it's what really keeps me excited in the space too.
I can imagine. I mean, because you're working with people from all across industries and fields. So help me kind of explain, I would say explain to our listeners, how does your organization work to create bridges for vendors to identify opportunities for their businesses? So Heather.
Sure. So there's the traditional and then there's the now. So in the traditional sense, we would work with them to get certified, and then we would have what we call connection opportunities, which would often be in-person opportunities where they'd come, they'd meet with you, Mike, and you, Karen, and other corporate members. We have a base of corporate members, Fortune 5 to Fortune 500 and beyond, and they would meet and they'd build those business relationships, both existing and future. In the present state, we're doing this virtually. We're trying to figure out how to build and grow business relationships in the new virtual environment. So that is the connection opportunity, but then more strategically, we hone in and we really work with our corporate members. If they have opportunities in their pipeline, we strategically source our database and search and try to find those MBEs and do those direct matches to support those connections too.
Great. And Karen?
Sure, we do a lot of one-on-one advising with our women business owners throughout our region, just helping them, come up with what's their capability, and so what does the capability statement look like? What's the one pager that really gets you all, Karen and Mike, excited about, being able to take their product or service back to your buyers? What is the value that they are providing? What is the problem that they're solving? Why them and not whoever you're using now? So we do a lot of that. We do workshops and trainings. To Heather's point, all of that is virtual now. One of our programs that we're just in the process of wrapping up for this year is called Top Shelf, where we help companies that have retail products that they want to get into major retailers such as the Targets and the Walgreens and the True Values of the world. We also actually within the state of Illinois do some lending and capital placement. In the Minnesota area, we do that with a partner called Women Venture that is a micro lender and SBA loan provider based in Minneapolis. And then we also do a lot of those connections as Heather was talking about, whether they're kind of one-offs that a corporate partner says, hey, we're looking for an XYZ, and we help them source that, to having events or programs where representatives from the corporations are there to talk about, their needs, and we do matchmakers. And then obviously through our national organization, WeBank, there's national events as there are for NCMSDC, or really NMSDC, the National Minority Supplier Development Council national networks as well. So there's both the local, regional type of activities that both of us do, as well as at the national level.
I will definitely say that both organizations have done an amazing job of pivoting during COVID to taking a very large operation that is traditionally face-to-face networking and interaction and flipping that to a virtual environment that's just as effective. So I want to say my hat is off to both of your organizations for really making that shift.
Yeah, I would totally second that.
what else do you do? Right? I mean, you have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is the most underutilized benefit? I list off a few of the benefits earlier, but what would you say is the most underutilized benefit that a vendor should always try to leverage with you? And we can start with Karen.
Okay. Well, I think that there's two things. One is that they don't even think about leveraging it, period. And I think that part of this is because getting certified is a process, and it is not an easy process, and it is not for the faint of heart. So you get through with it, and I think that there's a tendency to think, okay, I'm going to check that box, done that, moving on to the next shiny thing. And I'm not even going to think about what to do with that certification. And then the next thing you know, it's a year later, you have to recertify, and you think, what, I haven't gotten anything. So that's the biggest mistake. But I think that the thing that people often don't think about is, taking time to sit down with, in terms of the WBDC with myself or one of my colleagues, and Heather offers similar services for the MBEs that she's got certified, to just talk through what is my value proposition, because it is not that I'm WBE certified. It is not that I'm an MBE, right? And there's lots of MBEs, there's lots of WBEs, et cetera, et cetera. But what is the business problem for Target or whoever the customer is that I'm going after that I can fix? And why can I do it better than anybody else? And it really often takes kind of a disinterested person to help you figure that out. It's sometimes hard to figure that out on your own because you're just so in it. So that's not taking advantage of those kinds of services and opportunities, I think is just a loss for the business that doesn't do that.
Okay. And Heather?
Yeah, so obviously echoing a lot of what Karen's saying as well, but I think one of the, especially in these times right now, underutilized things that our MBEs are not maybe thinking that is something really that they bring to the table is their ability to be nimble and innovative. And I think that right now in these times, they are particularly poised to be a great partner to our corporate members because they're in a position to be able to prioritize our corporate members, treat that customer as customer number one, and really using that overused word that we're all saying right now, make the pivot with the customer to bring some innovation that they are uniquely positioned to do. And I would agree obviously with what Karen's saying as far as it's a tool in the toolkit. So on the one hand, it's not the first out the door, I'm certified, but it is a differentiator and it's a value add. And I think oftentimes, Karen, you're absolutely right. The certification comes, it gets put somewhere, and it's not maybe utilized in a way to leverage that relationship and show what differentiates your company from your competitors. And understanding my company's bringing all of this to the table. And by the way, I'm also a MBE certified or a WBE certified company.
Right. I mean, we send a lot of emails, both, WeBank or WBDC, and I'm sure that at the local level, or, the regional level and also the national level. And sometimes people just don't even look at them. And then they get upset that they don't know about things. There's so much happening. And in the COVID environment, almost all of it is much more easily accessible than it was before. You don't have to travel anywhere, right? It is, just turn on your computer. And so you don't want to miss that kind of stuff. I was actually in a program this morning where they were talking about, when times are really super good, everybody's really busy. And, now is maybe a better time to participate in some either educational programs or opportunities to connect with corporate partners that might not be available during, times when everybody is just running around like a chicken with their head cut off because they're so busy.
And I think it's maybe sometimes underappreciated how valuable it is virtually or in person to build those relationships. And to your point, Karen, when the opportunities are maybe not being taken advantage of, whether in person or virtually, they're not getting to know you, Mike, they're not getting to know you, Karen, so they're not building those relationships. So then when an opportunity comes up with the corporate member, they're not present of mind because you've not had that opportunity to build. And one of the challenges that I'm sure, Karen, you can attest to too as well with WBDC is the private sector is a hard nut to crack for sourcing opportunities. It's not easy, and it doesn't have to have transparency. That's not required. And so the relationships really do matter. They really do.
Heather, I'm so glad you said that, because I think a lot of times people, poor Michael and Karin have lost complete control of this. That a lot of times, you should have known this when you invited us on, but a lot of times people think, okay, I'm going to reach out to, Fortune 100 company X and send them an email, and I'm going to say, hey, this is what I'm about, and great. And then next week I'm getting that purchase order in. And that's obviously not how it works. And when I say it like that, you sort of recognize, yeah, that's just silly. Nobody would think that, except sometimes people do. And so you really want to develop those relationships. And I don't develop a relationship with you, Karin, by seeing you once, whether it's live or in person, and saying, Karin, my company does X, Y, Z. Isn't this great? And then I wonder why you're, it's not like I'm the only person that you're talking with, right? So really developing those relationships, expressing your value proposition, but also then using opportunities when you can interact with corporate representatives to listen and learn. The supplier diversity people that we work with, because Heather and I have, largely very similar corporations that we work with. You all are in this industry and in this part of the industry because you have a passion to serve your diverse suppliers. In addition, you are serving your buyers and the folks within your corporation to accomplish the strategic objectives that you and your corporation have. And so, it behooves all of us to learn from each of you and all of you what you're looking for. And you all provide great feedback when I'm willing to listen to it, right? When I'm willing to listen to it, I can learn.
I agree with both of you 100%. And I would layer on one other thing where you talked about the importance of relationship. I think one of the most underutilized benefits is leveraging your membership base. They go to a lot of these conferences and events, and they're seeing the Targets, the Lowe's, the Home Depot, Macy's, whereas you'll have a MBE or a WBE right next to you that needs marketing, that needs staffing, that needs, construct. You open up your network when you're looking at the people to the left and right of you. So I agree 100%. And I'm so glad that we had, you guys kind of confirm that. I'll transition over to Karin now.
Yeah, no, I completely agree as well. I think the network piece truly is one of the biggest benefits of the certification. We know full well that nothing happens overnight. And if it does happen quickly, you need your tribe even more, right? We need all of us together to help grow the businesses and meet on the deliverables that are in front of us. So I think it's imperative that we become much more intentional as to how we really use certification, knowing that we are in this virtual world right now for the foreseeable future. Is there any additional tip that you would want to give the entrepreneurs listening to this, and so that they can really look at how to connect more intentionally or start creating those relationships, even if they can't do it face to face?
One of the really good pieces of advice that somebody had suggested is you can, for any publicly traded company, which of course, any large corporation is publicly traded, you can go in and just in the investor information on somebody's website and just listen to the quarterly reports when they have the investor calls. You learn a lot about what is that company doing at a really high level. And I'll just use a cynical example. You're not going to find very many companies who say, oh yeah, we're against environmental sustainability. We just think it's silly, right? I mean, everybody says that they meet, that everybody's website includes them. Some corporations really mean it, and you can hear that in the investor call as an instance. So if you hear that that's really, truly important, then that's something that you want to make sure that you position your value proposition around, if it's at all relevant. As opposed to, if it's not, then maybe you would focus on another area. So that kind of insight can be really helpful. A lot of times you can hear, and even more so in the COVID times, you can hear CEOs and it's typically CEOs talk about their companies. And again, just getting that kind of insight really helps you position where do I and my, the goods or services I provide, how can that fit into what's truly their strategy?
Definitely. I think doing the homework and knowing who you want to serve and also who your competition is can really be a valuable exercise.
Yeah.
And Heather, how about you?
I don't think that can be overstated. I think it's really meaningful, not to speak for you, but I'm sure it's really meaningful when a prospective supplier comes up to you and engages with you and they understand what your company does. They've done some research on your company. And I think going back to your question, Karin, on the entrepreneur setting themselves apart, I think it is doing that research. It is being targeted. It is being strategic in which corporations or companies you think your company could be the best match to. It's listening to those investor calls, which is I was actually going to suggest that, and Karin, you brought it up. It's knowing what you do well. And I think there is also an understanding of risk aversion. I mean, when we're talking about these large corporations, you're not going to just bring a supplier in and not realize what the risk could be in doing so. So as a supplier, if in your mindset, or a prospective supplier in your mindset can think of, okay, how do I prevent risk for this prospective company? I've done my research. I know that this could be a very good match for what I do. Look at what 80% of your current revenue that's coming in is. I know one of the things that I think we all hear all the time is don't try to be everything to everyone. That's actually scary. So don't go up and say, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. This is where I'm niche. This is where I'm strong. This is why I'd be different than who you're currently doing business with today. And that lessens the scare of hearing someone can do everything. And I think there is a tendency for an entrepreneur to want to do everything so they can get any opportunity. But I believe that it's really good to hone in, do the research, and then share what really is your skill sets and your strengths.
Yeah.
And as Heather said, I mean, there's almost nothing that anybody is trying to sell that you aren't already buying, right? I mean, my salsa is not the first salsa that y'all have ever heard of at Target. So, anything that I'm going to be selling to you is almost inevitably going to result in you not doing business with whoever you're selling, buying from now. So how do I make that argument to disrupt your supply chain, to cause the risk that Heather is talking about? So it can't just be that my salsa is really, really good, right? Because you all have great products in your stores now, but what is my product going to be able to do that you're currently not able to do? And so that's just really an important mindset for entrepreneurs to think through. Again, establishing the value proposition, being able to communicate that to you, so that you, as the supplier diversity professionals, could then feel confident advocating to the buyer of and figuring out when is the timing of this. I mean, there's just so many things. We could just go on forever, and I know that unfortunately we don't have forever today to talk.
No, but I think you're absolutely right in the sense too that, if we can tell somebody's story and put that nice sharp point on what it is they do, how they're different, how they can provide a solution to our guest. Supplier diversity is really unique, as I alluded to earlier, that we're a very collaborative bunch. So we're always talking to each other, and last year when we were actually able to see each other on a regular basis at all the different conferences, we are constantly passing people's names and saying, hey, I just met with this vendor. Could you work with them? This is a fantastic entrepreneur over here in this region. I know you've got experience there. So we want to be able to tell those stories in a really great way. And I think one of the best things that entrepreneurs can do is help us tell their story to others, right? And so that's where we see those success moments. And I think on that note, I would love to touch on with you, and especially since we just got to see what I think of as a wonderful success moment with Bee and the Honey Pot. What are some of those stories that you've seen? Heather, is there one in particular success story that you can come up with right now that you can share with the group?
So I'm going to talk in generalities because there is some generality amongst many of our MBEs in their success stories and what made them successful. And I would say it's persistence and tenacity and not being a pain. I mean, not calling Karin every day, but realizing, you know what, I know I can do something great for Target. I know my company can do something great for Target. So I'm going to keep working in my business and on my business. I'm going to keep growing my customer base, but I'm going to be present, and I'm always going to be building that relationship. And I can, case in point, call just the other day from an MBE in our network. Heather, it took 10 years. It took 10 years, but I got into company X. I knew I was a match. I knew I was a match, and they just gave me an opportunity. It took 10 years, but I knew it. And, you know, all the while relationships were being built and opportunities were being built. So the company was growing, but they utilized the network, they leveraged their certification, and they did eventually get into that corporate member.
That's great.
I
Karen?
think the one that I'm going to talk about, because it illustrates the point of research, this is a two-woman company that does marketing, and they do some kind of unique marketing opportunities for their customers. And they've been in business for maybe 15 years and then just got certified. Came to a workshop that was back when we did these sorts of things in person a couple of years ago, and really listen to what the corporate representatives who were leading that workshop talked about in terms of how do you approach national WeBank events, conferences most effectively. And I mean, those ladies killed it. They had to leave we had a little dinner the first night of the conference just for people to get together. Well, we got to get back because we've got more research to do. And they had like books of research on the different companies. They knew who they wanted to talk to, and they knew who wasn't a good fit. And they went after the people that they wanted to talk to, like, whatever, glue on a stamp. And did the same thing at national conference, left both of those events with, great follow-ups that have then been able to develop into actual business. And it is because they were smart and they were tenacious, and they listened to people's advice, and they followed that advice, and they did the work. And it's so fun when that happens, because business is difficult, and it's not easy to sell to corporations or Michael, to your point, to others. I mean, that's really a great strategy, whether you're selling just smaller amounts or whether you're partnering with another diverse firm. But I would say that's a success story I like to share.
Yeah, I think anytime that we have that really open dialogue, and even though things do take some time, I know in looking back at the last 5 years of me being in supplier diversity, the ones that really stay with me are the ones that started off with a conversation at an event and then continued on with, hey, can we talk about packaging? Can we talk about how I should be strategically growing? Should I stay in my aisle, or should I, look at other categories? And we were able to really round out what their positioning would look like. And of course, at the end of the day, it's the entrepreneur's decision, but at least we can help shorten that learning curve as supplier diversity and as organizations like yours that certify these vendors to help them make the best decisions possible. And so with that, I'm going to pass it back to Mike, and I think we have one more question.
So actually, I think that was the last question that I had, but I would like to ask for both of you to have maybe take 2 minutes to do a closing statement on, what advice would you give the cohort on, just certification, being entrepreneurs, and the journey ahead. And we'll start with you, Heather.
Okay, I'm going to piggyback on a couple of things that I really like that Mike, you and Karen shared that I'm going to update my repertoire of information with. So one of the things is, and I know Karen and I both said it, certification is a tool in the toolkit. So certainly we always tell companies looking at certification, this doesn't attest to the value of your business. Your business is outstanding. It's amazing. You're bringing a great product or a service at a competitive price. You're bringing innovation. You don't need certification for you. You need it for your customer. And this is a value for your customer. So when you introduce yourself to the customer, don't lead in with, I'm a small certified business. No. So now with what Karen's saying, I'm thinking I like the idea of the personal story, because I really think in listening to the years of matchmaking opportunities where we've had MBs talk with corporate members, that personal story of why did that entrepreneur start that company and why that space is so important to them, that sits with you and it builds that relationship. So I love that. And then I'll move over to your comment, Mike, on basically replicating what you're looking at in your potential corporate customer, partnering with MBEs, doing MBE spend, building those MBE to MBE relationships. I think that is really critical. Not only does it build MBE to MBE capacity, but it replicates to your potential future customer that you yourself value what you're asking your customer to value. So I could go forever. I know, Karen, we could make this like a multi-part series, but I'll there.
Oh, Karen, can you share?
Sure. So, I mean, I think just to take what Heather said and then give you my spin on it. I love the stories. I think that's so important. And I also urge people when they're thinking about their story to make it succinct in 2 sentences. So it's one thing to say to a supplier diversity person or a buyer, you know, I started making this product because my child, you know, had allergies. I couldn't find anything. So now I'm making this great allergy-free, you know, product, whatever. That's perfect. That's a good story. 5 minutes about, you know, my kid had these symptoms and I couldn't, and I went to this doctor and that doctor. I mean, nobody wants to hear that, right? So you really want to make sure that your pitch is professional, while also including the personal. But you know, I say that because I think a lot of times entrepreneurs, when they introduce themselves, give you 5 minutes about stuff that, you know, and I don't mean to be cold-hearted, but nobody wants to know about, right? I mean, just, you know, that's not why we're in the room. But I also think you want to look at this strategically, right? So certification is, as we've said, you know, it's challenging to go through. I mean, it's a very thorough vetting process. And it's annually renewed. And so if I have just invented my salsa company, right, you know, day before yesterday, I really need to probably spend some time growing that company before it makes sense for me to get certified. I mean, you know, either the MSDC network or WeBank network, you know, we'll certify anybody who pays us an application fee who qualifies. I mean, you know, we don't look at whether it makes sense for you to get certified. But think about the when and the which. If somebody's a construction company and they mostly just want to build roads, then, you know, getting the corporate certification, you know, NCMSDC or the certification threads might not be the best fit. You might need to get a government certification. So you want to just think that through and be strategic about it, because otherwise you'll end up spinning your wheels and wasting money, but more importantly, wasting time of building your business. And then the last thing I'd say is just ask for help, right? That's why we're there, that we exist for that reason. Heather's groups exist for that reason. There's small business development centers and women's business centers and PTACs, procurement technical assistance centers, if you want to sell to the government, who are around. And this is what we do, is we help entrepreneurs guide you in the right direction, or answer questions, or, you know, ask you questions that make you think about things. So, you know, always ask for help. And one of the real benefits of these networks, whether the MSDC network or the WeBank network, is going to be that network of other entrepreneurs who are so want to support each other, that it's really a lovely thing.
Thank you so much for sharing. And there are so many benefits to being certified. You know, and I think we've heard this word several times today, which is networking. And, you know, in this business of entrepreneurship, your network is your currency. You know, the more you have, the wealthier you are. You know, people that can connect you with people to help you avoid obstacles that they encountered. So, you know, there's so much that's involved. And I want to start by saying, you know, that both of these, we will share the links to both of the organizations for our cohort to dig deeper in, as well as the other listeners. But thank you so much today for sharing your story, sharing your background and your programs. Karen and I are honored to have moderated this conversation. For those of you who are listening, please be sure to visit the Target Accelerator virtual booth, sign up for office hours, access additional resources, and the latest information on our Target Accelerator program. They've done an amazing job. These are amazing partners that have helped develop and work with a ton of different companies. So thank you all for your partnership, your conversations today, and we appreciate your time. Have a wonderful week.
The future of retail is being shaped by bold, brilliant entrepreneurs. They're ready to succeed, and Target Accelerators is here to help.
This experience in the incubator program has really blown me away because people from all levels of Target have truly unlocked doors for us.
It's just amazing the amount of information that I would never in a million years imagine that I have people that can help me like that.
There are other programs out there that help young companies accelerate or grow, but we think that Target is the pinnacle client for what we do.
We believe in game-changing ideas and in the entrepreneurs who dream them. We are Target Accelerators, and together we'll shape the future of retail.